All right, what's good, y'all? How's everybody doing today? Gonna let some people come on in. I forgot to send out my usual tweets reminding you about the show tonight. I totally slipped my mind for some reason, but we're here, so I'm gonna let some more people come in. And let me know that you're live in the chats. Let me know how you guys are doing. How's your Wednesday going? Mine's going pretty good. Been really busy lately. Been really tired too, but it's all good. We're going to have a good show tonight. We're going to talk about a lot of cool things. So let some more people get in here. It's a lot happening. Quite a bit happening in the world of news and politics today. A lot of it about race, just like it's been for the past couple years. It's interesting. It's race issues are heating up. I mean, there's other stuff that I talk about, other stuff that I write about, but it seems like every time I want to talk about something different, something else comes up and I got to talk about that. But that's just how it works sometimes. Let's see. Brown Mamba, how you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. David Gray, when you turn on the reminder for my podcast, it doesn't remind me. Did you click the bell? The little bell notification thing, because that could be it, or it could just be that YouTube's having issues or they just don't like me. You saw what they did to me on Monday when I was trying to talk to Eliza Blue. They totally interfered. It's all right though. Let's see. I'm just going to do something really quick. Okay, so you did hit the notification bell. Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that. I mean, because it seems like whenever I hit that bell, I get the notifications. Although now that you mention it, there are some times when I don't with some of the channels that I subscribe to. So I don't know if YouTube is tripping or if it's something I'm doing or what. But just in case, you have to remember it's every Monday and Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard. Okay. Miki Love, how you doing? I see you. I see you. So we're going to get started in just a second here. All right. So before I get started, as usual, please share this video, like and share. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. It helps me out a lot. You guys were very instrumental in helping me get to where I can start monetizing this channel. And it's been pretty awesome so far, but I'm hoping that it gets even better. If you want to support my work, you can go to my locals.com community. That is a freshperspective.locals.com. The link is in the show notes. That's where I put a lot of my members only content that you can only access if you're a subscriber. I have an interview right now with Governor Mike Huckabee on how he won half of the black vote when he ran for governor. Awesome interview. It was very, very informative. Nothing too surprising, but the way he laid it out was awesome. So go ahead and check that out. It's only $4.99 per month, and you'll get access to content that other people don't. You'll also get access to other types of content before other people are able to see it. Also, if you want to do a one-time donation, the links are up here and also in the show notes. You got my Venmo, you got my CashApp. I appreciate any and everything. And also, I've gotten to the point to where I can receive super chats. So if there's a burning question that you have that I might not get to, or a comment, or if you just want to support, go ahead and do a super chat. All that stuff helps. All right. So let's light this candle. First, I'm going to talk about Black Lives Matter. I'm going to talk about the fact that they just continue to get exposed over and over and over again. Now, the criticism that I'm going to give is going to be primarily about the global or national Black Lives Matter organization. This doesn't really apply to the local chapters. As a matter of fact, if you've been following these stories, you'll see that the local chapters are beefing with the overall global organization because they're getting funny with the money, to make a long story short. Essentially, the overall organization seems to be mishandling the donations that they're getting. They're not getting to the people on the ground. Now, remember, the global organization, they're not the ones with the boots on the ground. It's the local chapters. And it's also the people who they promise to work with, especially people who lost children to police shootings. And some of them are speaking out. And that's actually what I want to talk mainly about right now. Recently, a woman named Lisa Simpson. She was the mother of a black man who was killed by the LAPD. I don't know the details of the case, and it's not really germane to this discussion here, but she had a lot of very interesting things to say. Now, this video looks like it's recent. I saw it on Twitter, and well, yeah, it isn't. I can tell that it's recent because of the things that she talks about. So I'm going to bring up the video really quick. Oh God, y'all want me to talk about Tucker Carlson? If I can fit that in, I will. It'll be short. I don't have much to say about it, at least not right now. But take a look at this video. This is Lisa Simpson kind of doing her own little protest against the Black Lives Matter global organization.
Campaign ad in 2016. So this is what y'all doing to mothers out here, y'all. Come into our lives and act like y'all got our back because y'all want to say Black Lives Matter. But after we bury our children, we don't see BL or M. But y'all out here buying properties with the money of the death of our children that people are donating to y'all because they think y'all got y'all boots on the ground. Well, I'm here to tell them, your boots ain't on the ground, your boots in the pedicure bowl. You getting your feet done. You ain't got your boots on the ground. Now you hanging downtown on 8th Street every Wednesday for the last 6 weeks. But this the problem I got with y'all. Patrice, you got a mural out there with you on the mural and your wife on the mural. Where the dead children of Los Angeles at on the mural since you fighting for our children? Where are they? You're not fighting for our children. You're fighting for your pockets. Black lives don't matter. Your pockets matter. Let's keep it real. But the mother of Lisa Simpson, the mother of Richard, Lisa Simpson, y'all getting out our fight. Because guess what? Y'all have made our death fight into a money game. And it's bigger than the money. Because guess what? We still dying out here globally. Y'all got all them millions and y'all won't even bury these children, bro. Y'all give these families $500. But you buying all these properties, though, these houses. Is you gonna put the homeless people in the house? Because you ain't even doing enough for the communities. Or
Pretty interesting, huh? So when she referenced Patrice, she's talking about Patrice Cullors. She's one of the co-founders of the global Black Lives Matter movement. And if you've been following the story, it recently came up that she bought a $1.4 million house in the LA area, or Topanga Canyon. And this isn't her only property. Her and her wife own a lot of different properties, but she's supposed to be this activist that's on the ground advocating for Black lives. You heard her mention the mural that has Patrice Cullors and her wife on it. And she asked a good question. Why aren't the parents, or at least murals of the kids or the young men who were killed by police, where is their mural at? Where is their money at? The global organization, based on what she's saying, gives them about $500 to bury their children when they're killed by police. But they're rolling in the dough. Obviously, they've got tens of millions of dollars in donations, most of which would be from white progressives who want to help. Rank and file white progressives who think that by giving money to Black Lives Matter, they are affecting people's lives on the ground. What they don't know is that money doesn't get to the people who are on the ground, according to the people on the ground. Lisa Simpson would be one of them. And she's been shouting it out. Like this isn't the first time that she's called them out. And she's also not the only one. But this whole thing is a whole grift. And you can kind of see that from the beginning. And honestly, I think it's more people on the right who were actually wanting to be honest about it and say, you know what, this is a grift. They're going to grift you. They're like, this isn't real. Now, there were a lot of dishonest people on the right who just want to label them as a terrorist organization. You've already heard my thoughts about that. But there are serious issues with the global organization. And it's one of the reasons why I am so careful to delineate between the local chapters and the global organization, because they're not the same thing. It's the global organization that are the Marxists, the trained Marxists. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't Marxists involved in the local chapters as well. It really depends on where you are. Like from what I've seen, the chapter here in Austin, it's further to the left than a lot of the others. A lot of the local chapters, some of them have come out against the riots and the violence that happened last summer, but they were involved more in the peaceful protests. So they kind of get lumped in unfairly and in a lot of cases deliberately, because we can't have honest discourse anymore. But like I said, this isn't the first time that Simpson has gone against the Black Lives Matter leaders. Earlier this month, she held a press conference, and this is where some of the local issues come up. She was criticizing Melina Abdullah, and she is the leader of the Los Angeles branch of Black Lives Matter, and she stated that. She said that despite their promise to help people like Simpson and other family members of people killed by police, they have not lived up to their word. So here's a quote from the article that I found. She says, quote, "I have not received one penny from Abdullah or BLM, despite BLM Global Network reporting they have raised $90 million in donations. Locally, Abdullah and BLM have received over $3 million in donations. I'm not begging Abdullah or BLM for money. I'm simply asking that she keep her financial commitment she made to my family after solicitation of funds using my son's name and other names of victims of police violence, such as Ezell Ford, Michael Brown, and Tamir Rice," unquote. So the Black Lives Matter organization, this isn't just Los Angeles, it's the global Black Lives Matter organization. They are using the deaths of these young men to grift. They're using dead Black bodies to get money and to pursue whatever agenda they're pushing towards. Now, if you remember a while ago, there's a huge controversy over their website, right? I mean, what did they have on there as far as their purpose goes? They didn't talk much about police brutality at all. They were talking about other agendas that had nothing to do with safeguarding Black lives and holding government officials accountable when they abuse their authority. And the thing is, we got to be real about this. I mean, and if you're watching this and you like Black Lives Matter, I get it. Again, lots of good people there. I disagree with a lot of their politics, and I disagree with a lot of their policy proposals. But there are a lot of people who are involved in that organization that want to do good, and there are a lot of them who are doing good. But the global Black Lives Matter organization has been conning both Black and white Americans for years. Like I said, it's nothing more than a grift designed to promote a white progressive agenda. Like I always call them, the global Black Lives Matter organization is white progressives in political blackface. That's all it is. They use blackfaces to represent their agenda and try to push through the things that they want. They've raised millions and millions from well-meaning people under the guise of supporting Black communities. But now it's seeming like it's being exposed more and more. I mean, the stories that have been coming out back to back over the past few weeks have been very revelatory. And I think that there's going to be more that comes out. But here's the question. How much information, how much of these revelations will be enough to finally bring down the individuals who are conning people? When will they be held accountable for not being transparent? I believe that the local Black Lives Matter chapters have valid grievances against the global organization, and they're not really responding to it very well at all. And here's the thing. I mean, if we're going to talk about Black Lives Matter as conservatives, if we're going to oppose the Marxist part of it, we have to be smart about it. And this is where we fall flat, because we're always talking about, oh, well, Black Lives Matter is about rioting. Well, in most of those riots, these were people from out of town who weren't even affiliated with Black Lives Matter. They just wanted to come and loot. They wanted to come and get free shit. I mean, I talked about this with the Hoteps last night, and check that out on their Patreon page. If you're a Patreon member, go ahead and take a look. They interviewed me on their program last night. And if you're not a member of their Patreon, become one and watch it. It was a lot of fun. But the bottom line is we continue to miss opportunities to actually make a cogent, well thought out argument. Instead of being sensational and talking about how they're all terrorists. I mean, they're not a terrorist organization, but there are valid criticism. They are a grift. We should be pointing these things out, and these should be our main arguments. Also, there is the fact that a lot of these people haven't really done much as far as legislation goes. If you look at my debate with Anthony Rogers Wright, that was a couple months ago when Black Lives Matter was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. I asked him, what difference have they made? I mean, there have been protests since last summer. What have they actually done? And again, I'm not talking about the local chapters who are actually in their communities. I'm talking about overall, when it comes to legislation, measures designed to hold police officers accountable. He didn't have much of an answer. He didn't have much of an answer at all. They defunded some police departments, which is only going to make Black people less safe. That's a clue. That's a clue to what they're really trying to do. And I'm going to lump in Democrats with this too. Even if they're not part of Black Lives Matter, Democratic officials, they don't want to solve these problems. They don't want to deal with police brutality. They want that issue to be there. And the way you know is because all they've done so far is paint some murals, defund some police departments, which is counterproductive. Some have actually put in some measures to deal with things like mental health or having social workers go on some of these outings where police have to respond to calls. That's all well and good. I don't necessarily oppose those things, but that's not going to move the needle. That's not going to prevent police brutality. The bottom line is that when police officers know that they're not going to get away with these things, with abusing their authority, that's when they'll stop. Because if there are consequences, then they'll stop. Right now, most police officers who commit crimes or engage in misconduct or police brutality, they rarely get convicted. At the most, they might get fired, but then they can just move to a different town. They can move to a different city. They can move to a different state and start working again. Tim Scott wanted to address that in the legislation that he proposed that they shot down. The bottom line is they don't want to do anything about this. They want this to persist. Sonny Johnson and I talked about it on her show on Saturday. They're not against the police. They like the police, but they have to appear that they don't, because that's what gets them their support. So I wanted to touch on that because I think that there will be a lot more that comes out about this as time goes on. And I'm not sure how relevant Black Lives Matter will be in a few years. I think it'll still take a while, but unless they reform some of the way that they're doing things, it's not gonna make a difference. And even if they do, like I said, the overall leadership, they're not up to the task. They're not really trying to prevent these issues. Let me check the chats real quick. Marxism always worked for the Marxists, not the people. Yeah, you're right. I actually wrote an article about that. We shouldn't be surprised that Patrice Cullors and her wife have a nice mansion or a $100.4 million house and other properties as well, because this is exactly what Marxism is. This is what socialism and communism is. They say that everybody's supposed to be equal, but if you watch Animal Farm or if you read the book, you know that some animals are more equal than others. So it's always going to elevate the elite class that will live high on the hog while their supposedly equal underlings are living in dirt. I mean, that's what it is. Let's see. Kind of off topic, but Brett Weinstein and Brittany King had a very interesting conversation regarding BLM and race relations. Yeah, I saw that come up. I started listening to it, but I hadn't gotten to the part where Brett Weinstein shows up yet. But I'll check that out. Let's see. Brown Mama, I've heard from many Black people that BLM is more of an LGBT movement than a pro-Black movement. Nothing against LGBT, but they should really form their own movement and not piggyback off of Black people. I feel the same way, but they've been doing that for years. Actually, they've been glomming on to the Black civil rights movement, trying to use that to promote their agenda. But this is a blatant case of that, right? Because, like I said, on their webpage, this was all about LGBT, and the issue isn't them fighting to protect LGBT individuals. The issue is them using Black Lives Matter to do it. I mean, Black Lives Matter is not really about Black lives, according to the webpage. They took that page down, by the way, but that was very telling. And that was one of my first clues that this isn't on the up and up. So I'll go on to the next topic here. I think you guys are going to like this one. We're going to talk about the Daunte Wright case. I talked a little bit about this yesterday, but I've got some things to add. Now, if you've been watching the news, Kim Potter, she was the officer that shot and killed Daunte Wright during that encounter. She has resigned from her job, and she is going to be charged with second-degree manslaughter. Now, second-degree manslaughter, the sentence that she could be facing, or I'm just going to read from what the law says in Minneapolis or in Minnesota. A person who causes this is a quote, a person who causes the death of another by any of the following means is guilty of manslaughter in the second degree and may be sentenced to imprisonment for not more than 10 years or to payment of a fine of not more than $20,000 or both. So if she's convicted, she'll get up to 10 years. Now, if you watch my live stream from yesterday, I did a really short one. But at first, I didn't really buy the whole excuse that she thought it was her taser. But after watching it a few more times, I think that is the most likely cause here. I think that's what most likely happened. Like I said yesterday, I mean, if I was going to believe that she did this on purpose, then I would have to believe that she went into that situation thinking, I'm going to shout taser, taser, taser. I'm going to shout, I'll tase you, as a cover up for the fact that I really just want to kill this guy right now. And then she shot him. That's a leap. That's a stretch. That's too far of a leap. Without evidence, that's too far of a leap. Now, if something comes up later, then I'll change my opinion, but I don't think it will. But what I really wanted to talk about here is the reaction from the right. And you know how it goes in these cases. And I talked about yesterday, I talked about the authoritarian right. It's hard for me to even take these people seriously as conservatives because what they believe in it goes against a fundamental principle of conservatism. Like conservatives can disagree on different issues, like, you know, how much government should be involved in whatever, or if you have disagreements on the death penalty, for instance, or if you have difference of opinion on, say, tariffs or things like that. These are disputable matters that don't necessarily represent a foundational tenet of conservatism. You can argue in some ways that tariffs are good and that doesn't violate conservative principles, or you can argue that they're bad and yada, yada, yada. But a foundational principle of conservatism that is not up for debate is the fact that we should be leery of a big government because of tyranny. A bigger government is able to commit acts of tyranny much easier than a limited government can. That's why we oppose, well, that's why we want limited government. So the idea that somewhere along the line we turned into authoritarians is troubling to me. And if you're constantly defending the state or officials working with the state when they abuse their authority, then I question your conservatism, because that is foundational. Now, I get it. If the officer deserves to be defended, then fine. But the knee-jerk reaction, the first thing that a lot of people who call themselves conservatives want to do, they want to defend the police. And I don't see how somebody can be conservative and do that. They may think they're conservatives, but that's authoritarianism. You know, focusing more on how Wright resisted than you do on the action that killed him. Same with George Floyd. Now, yesterday, and at the end of this live stream, I am going to be making some more predictions, but I had a prediction yesterday that the authoritarian right would go into the dehumanization phase. Remember, I talked about the triple D methodology that the authoritarian right uses when they want to protect a police officer who abuses their authority. It's defend, distract, and dehumanize. Now, it's not always in that order. I mean, a lot of times they'll do all three at once. But at some point, all three of these factors will be present. And it's easy to see, especially in this case. We've seen them defend the officer. Brandon Tane made a video, and he made another video today that I'm going to go over right now. But yesterday he made a video basically saying, yeah, she was wrong, she made a mistake, but she shouldn't face any consequences for that because it was an accident. Now, we both know that he's not going to apply that standard to regular citizens, and he shouldn't. But in this case, he wants her to not be held. He wants a government official to not be held accountable for a crime that would be punished if a regular person did it. That is the very definition of statism, of authoritarianism. And as I predicted yesterday, I said they're going to try to dehumanize Daunte Wright. And it didn't take them long. Now, the dehumanization takes place when you see them dig up the criminal record of the person who was killed. They did the same thing with George Floyd. They do it with everybody. They did it with Ahmaud Arbery, even though that wasn't a police killing. They dehumanize the victim by bringing up his past so that you won't feel as bad about it, so that you won't feel that bad that a government official killed a citizen unjustly. So I'm going to bring this up really quick. And it's not too long of a video, but I'm just going to kind of go through it and give my reactions to it. And I'm going to show you how the dehumanization strategy works. So let me go ahead and grab that. I'm going to share. Computer's going a little slow. Okay, share audio. Beautiful. Okay. All right, let's see if this works. Let me know if you can hear it okay when I play it.
However, I think that we see a trend of the media consistently lying and painting these rosy pictures of people, making them out to be average black citizens, so everybody's terrified. Let me tell you something.
Okay, first, he said that they're painting this rosy picture of these people who get killed by police. Just notice what I'm just going to play it and see if you can notice what's missing from this comment.
To be very clear about this, if you are a law-abiding citizen and you ain't committing crimes and doing crazy stuff, you don't lead a life of chaos, confusion, and lawlessness. You will never end up like Daunte. This is a mathematical equation. If you do what I'm about to explain to you and show you what Daunte is doing and others like him, this can be an expected end for you. It's either by a cop, it's either by another gangbanger or somebody like that, or it's going to prison for the rest of your life. It's a mathematical equation. 2 plus 2 is 4. 2 plus 2 ain't 5. So if you're doing the right thing and you're a law-abiding citizen, you're not going to get this outcome. If you're accurate.
Okay. So remember, he said they're painting this rosy picture of who Daunte Wright was. What's missing? Examples. He didn't give a single example. He didn't give a single quote of somebody saying that he was a saint. They did the same thing with George Floyd. Black Conservative Inc. said that, oh, they're making him out to be a saint. They can't think of a single example. They can't say anybody, point to anybody who's saying, oh, George Floyd was a saint. They didn't like all the attention he was getting, and that's a different issue. But in this particular case, he doesn't bring up anybody who portrayed him as a saint. And he's saying that the media is hiding this information, and this is what they'll do. This is the strategy. Charlie Kirk does it. Candace Owens does it. Black Conservative Inc. and Conservative Inc. in general does this. They'll say the media isn't reporting on who he really was, but then they never tell you how they found out, how they find out. I can tell you that left-leaning sources talked about his record. They already mentioned that he had a misdemeanor, and that was always going to come out. It always does. And it's not right-leaning sources who do it. It's right-leaning sources and left-leaning sources. As a matter of fact, the reports from right-leaning media tend to be based on original reporting from the left. The difference is that the left doesn't obsess over it. So they'll mention, oh, this crime was committed, 10 years ago or 5 years ago, and that's what he did, and then move on. But they want the focus to be only on the criminal record. So this is one of the ways that they deceive, because they'll tell you that it's being covered up when it really isn't. And you know me, I can't stand the activist media. I go after them all the time. But that doesn't mean that they're always guilty of what the right is accusing them of. I'd rather go after them for something that they're actually doing, not for something that I'm just going to make up and lie to my audience and say, oh yeah, the media never covered it. Yeah, they covered it. It's out there. I'm sure there will be other reports on it. But the bottom line is that's not the most important issue here. So let's keep going.
And you're selling dope and robbing people and doing all this other stuff, which I'm going to show you, with your pants sagging and guns slinging and talking about guns and money and all this stuff. Your 2 plus 2 is going to equal 4, meaning that you're going to either go to jail or hell. One of the two is going to happen. That's what my grandma used to say. But without further ado, I'm going to show you what I'm talking about.
And before we even go on, I'll even say, as far as being factual, yeah, in most of these cases, it's somebody who was engaged in criminal activity, or maybe they had been doing something wrong before that or whatever. That doesn't matter. It doesn't give the state the right to unjustly kill them. That's the part that he's missing here deliberately, because he knows better. And the bottom line is that everybody knows this. Everybody knows if you lead a certain life, then certain things might happen to you. That does not justify what officers do when they abuse their authority. He wants to shift, and it's interesting because this is a dehumanization tactic, but it also falls into the distract category too, because he wants you thinking about what Daunte Wright did in the past and not what happened to him. He doesn't want you thinking about what the officer did.
I think it's invaluable for people to understand who this kid really was. So this is obviously be available for you on the Tlaib report. The link will be in the description section. However, these are the court documents that are proving that this young man was leading a life of crime. So why did he have a warrant? Because at the time he had a warrant. Some people, they're not going to tell you that in the mainstream media. They're going to tell you they put him over because he had air freshener on his.
That's a lie. The media did talk about his warrant. The police chief also mentioned the air freshener too when he came out and talked about the incident and how he thought it was an accident. They talked about that as well. So, not true.
His window, but that's not what he put him over. They put him over because he had expired registration, or you say expired tags, meaning that he wasn't taking care of his business and using his money to pay for things to handle his registration on his vehicle. So
he deserved to die because he wasn't handling his money right and didn't keep up with his registration. Right. Okay.
Expired registration on the vehicle. They pulled him over. They got his identification. The body worn camera.
Okay. An echo from the mic. Is the echo still there? I hope not. If this keeps going on, I'm using a different streaming program. This is ridiculous. Is the echo still there? Can you let me know? Okay. All right. Let me start it back up again.
Actually starts when they're walking back to the car after they decided that they were going to take him into custody pending a warrant. Mr. Tatum, what was the warrant for? He had a felony warrant out of for his arrest for first-degree attempted aggravated robbery. Now, why is it aggravated? Now, there's two factors that make robbery aggravated. One is if you use a firearm, the other if you have an accomplice. So him and another guy decided to rob a woman at gunpoint for $800 and some, put a gun to her head and said, look, give me the money, give me the effing money. Luckily she screamed and made him leave her house, which they had attended. I think it was like a house party or something of that nature. You'll see it here in the context here, in the court documents. I mean, I could just read a few of it. I just read a little bit of it. It says the victim reported that she was at the above listed residence with her female roommates. Her roommates were there. They were witnessing to this stuff. They're talking about their relationship with Mr. Wright. They talk about what he did here in the affidavit. Then it goes on to talk about the victim and their involvement with him and what he actually did.
Okay. So the document that he's looking at, I mean, I think I figured out the echo problem, but the document that he's looking here, what he's leaving out, if you see it, you wouldn't be able to see it at the top there, but it said statement of probable cause. This is not necessarily facts and evidence yet. This is a probable cause. This is why he was arrested, but he was pending trial. So he hadn't been convicted of this crime yet. These are accusations that were made against him. This is what Tatum is not telling you. And this is what they do. Now, is it possible that he committed the crime? Yeah, anything's possible. He may have done it, or he may have participated in it, or he may have somehow been guilty in it, or it could have been a total lie and he was never involved in it in the first place. The bottom line is that we don't know. The reason he had a warrant is because they arrested him. He made bail and he didn't show up for court. And also he was handling a firearm when he wasn't supposed to. So they had a warrant for his arrest, which was discovered after they pulled him over. They pulled him over for the tags and I believe for the air freshener as well. And then they found out, oh, you have a warrant. We got to take you in. Which is how a lot of times it'll happen. It'll just be a routine stop. They realize you have a warrant, then they try to arrest, or then they arrest you. Let's keep going.
Okay, you can go and read this for yourself at another time. However,
you make that bigger a little bit. Statement of probable cause, right? Okay, all right.
This is the lifestyle that he's living. If this is not enough evidence that the young man is committing bold, crazy crimes, which led to his arrest, which he's then, after he was arrested, after he had a warrant, failed to participate with the court. So that's how he ended up having an outstanding warrant, because they let him out on bail, $100,000 bail. He can't abide by that. He can't follow the rules after being let out. So they had a warrant for his arrest. Now, here's the thing. After he had been arrested and released, a condition of his release is that he can't be flashing guns around and stuff like that.
Oh, my YouTube's messing up. This part it sounds true. I mean, obviously, like, if you can't be flashing around firearms, and that's why the warrant was there. I'm going to skip a little bit. Actually, I don't need to. Okay, 1 second.
He ended up being in possession of a gun, which made his charges even greater than they were before. Let's look at this other document or some video evidence, and shout out to Charlie Kirk for posting this. And I know that other people have posted it, but I saw this on Charlie Kirk's page. So shout out to Charlie Kirk for posting this. But here's a video, and it's in slight context of what this kid was doing. This wasn't your average black kid going to school, doing the right thing. This is what he's doing. This is his lifestyle. This is what leads to your death. Roll the film. Got a gun hanging out his pocket like this. And
okay, you guys see what's going on here? Are you seeing the tactic? Making him look like a thug. And for all I know, I don't know what kind of lifestyle this guy led. Tatum could actually be 100% right on all of this. But is that the important part to focus on right now? Or should we be focusing on the state? Is anything that Daunte did worse than killing somebody? Especially if you're a state official? I don't think so. Let's keep going.
In no way, shape, or form is he trying to be in any way a legal and responsible gun owner. And people, let me go back to this real quick. And people are like, oh, he has a Second Amendment right and all this other stuff. I hear people saying that. He got a blunt in his hand, which I don't believe marijuana is legal in Minneapolis. I don't believe marijuana is legal there. And he have a gun. When you have illegal drugs with a gun, that's not, you're not following your constitutional right to carry a firearm. Also, in many states across the country, and I have to verify the laws in Minneapolis, many states across the country, you got to be 21 years old to have a hand.
Okay, so you see the mudding of the issue, right? The mudding of the waters. He's throwing in the gun. He's talking about how he smoked marijuana, as if anybody really cares about that. He doesn't care that Daunte was smoking weed. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. But again, this is part of the strategy. They want to stack all this evidence against him. They want to put Daunte Wright on trial instead of Kim Potter. That is the objective here. Just like Chauvin's at trial right now, but they want to put George Floyd on trial. This is how they work. They do this every time. Wash, rinse, repeat. Let's keep going.
Handgun. You can have a shotgun, you can have a rifle at 18, but you got to be 21 years old to have a handgun. He is not 21. He died at the age of 20. You live in this gangster life. You see, he wasn't listening to Kurt Franklin and listening to Kerry Job and listening to life. He has a 2-year-old daughter. He's just trying to survive out here in these streets as a black man in America. That's not it. When you live in this gangster life, you see, he wasn't listening to Kurt Franklin and listening to Kerry Job and listening to Christian gospel music or R&B music, or he wasn't listening. He listened to this gangster rap stuff that's telling him to go out and thug and kill and shoot people all day. And what does he do? He's living out the legacy of what he's listening to. He got a blunt in his mouth, gun hanging out his pocket, which looked like it'd be a different gun than he had before. And he got Hennessy in his hand. This is a level of irresponsibility that's beyond the scope of reasonableness, in my personal opinion.
So if you live a certain type of life, if you're not listening to Kirk Franklin or Kerry Job, which, by the way, I like both of them, then we should be focusing more on this is more egregious than the state killing a citizen unjustly. That's the logic that they're using here, because I guarantee you he's spending more time talking about this than he talks about what Kim Potter did, way more time. And like I tweeted earlier, if you are more offended by the fact that Daunte Wright resisted arrest, or even by any of this stuff here, if you're more offended by that than the fact that an agent of the state killed him, you're an authoritarian. I don't see how you can be conservative if that's the case.
And then you're violating your bail. They're probably afraid because you just had a warrant for aggravated robbery where you and another guy pull a gun on a woman and try to rob her for money.
Now he's making excuses for the police officers and the way they responded to him because they were somehow afraid of him because he had allegedly committed this violent robbery. Right, sure.
And then you're violating your bail, and you're in YouTube videos with guns and money. Like, you are hiding your suspicion when they see the warrant for your arrest involving dangerous weapons, a gun, and then they get to you, you resist arrest and try to drive off. Now, there's no excuse in my personal opinion for grabbing a gun instead of a taser. I mean, you have to be completely incompetent. I was a cop, man. There's no way I would have mistaken the two. They're on two different sides of your belt. However, the stressful situation is caused by little Daunte over here thugging and doing all this nefarious stuff that somebody was led to make a mistake.
So to be clear, police officers are not allowed to shoot people unjustly just because they try to resist arrest. Is it smart to resist arrest? No. But like I said before, there is not a single person other than Chelsea Handler who is arguing that people should resist arrest. This is something that's talked about in the Black community all the time, and he knows this. We always talk about how if you're pulled over, on the wheel 10, 4 or 10 or 2 o'clock, you say, yes, sir, no, sir. If they arrest you, you don't resist. If it's unjust, you take it up in court later. This is talked about between Black parents, Black relatives, Black friends. We've been talking about this stuff for a long time. Nobody is saying it is a good idea to resist arrest. Does that mean that everybody's going to listen? Unfortunately not. Anybody who has kids knows that if you tell them, don't you touch that stove, it'll hurt you. Some of them are going to do it anyway. I was one of them. I touched the iron, actually, not the stove. But again, he's trying to muddy the issue. He wants you focused on Daunte Wright's past and his actions that he did during the encounter. He's not wrong when he says that you shouldn't resist arrest, but that resisting arrest does not give the police license to do whatever the hell they want. That's why the guy that shot Walter Scott is in prison. Walter Scott resisted arrest and then he ran away. Officers shot him in the back a bunch of times. He's in jail and he should be for the rest of his life. Let's keep going.
But I want you guys to know this, and I'm not making it to disparage anybody, but you need to know the truth. These young brothers out here ain't gonna get smoked by the cops if they normal, if they're doing what's right, they're not resisting arrest. And even with all that he did, if he wouldn't have resisted arrest and tried to drive off in the car, he would still be alive. He would still be alive, ladies and gentlemen.
You know what? If Officer Kim Potter had grabbed her taser instead of a gun, he would still be alive. That's the more important part here. Yes, we got to emphasize personal responsibility, but unless you're going to convince me that this isn't happening, that people aren't talking about this and encouraging people not to resist arrest, I don't see that as the issue here. That's why I don't focus on it as much. I focus about it 10, 20% of the time. The rest of that is on the officer and the fact that officers tend to get off for these kind of crimes.
He dropped out of high school. He got a kid. He ain't even 20. He dropped out of high school selling drugs. Doing drugs, which is marijuana is a drug. Got money, flashing guns, robbing people with a 2-year-old daughter. He don't care about his daughter as much as they try to act like he do. He was a loving father. No, he wasn't. He was trying to go to prison and leave his daughter by herself. How was he a loving father when he can't take responsibility for his actions to not put himself in a position to be in prison instead of being there for his daughter? How is he a loving father? Stop lying on these young men and start telling the truth so we can fix it. Tell the truth.
Is it possible for somebody to love their daughter and still do stupid shit? Yes, We all do it. I mean, every parent has done something. Now, I get not every parent has resisted arrest. I'm not talking about that. But here's the thing. The reason why he brought that up is because he doesn't want you to see him as a human who loved his daughter. Two things can be true at once. He could have loved his daughter and he made a bad decision. It happens. It's unfortunate. He shouldn't have done it. And the officer had no business firing her gun at him. She had no business even being in that situation. Daunte Wright was still a human being. That is why they make these videos, to make conservatives lose sight of that. George Floyd was a human being. Alton Sterling, human being. They are all human beings. They don't want you to see them as human beings because they know that if you do, you are more likely to speak up. And they don't want conservatives speaking up against this stuff because they want to protect the state.
Moment. I'm a ticking time bomb. I ain't no way in the world I could resist arrest from police officers and live, but he did anyway. He was, you drinking Hennessy and you 20. You're drinking underage on camera on Facebook. How is these things occurring and we just let it go? George Floyd, if he had not been high on drugs and resisting arrest, if he'd have just sat in the back of the police car, he would be alive today. Eric Garner, if he would have said, okay, I didn't do nothing, but I'm going to be arrested and I'll get out after the 48th arrest he had, that he would say, I'm just going to get arrested. I didn't do nothing, but I'm not going to fight these officers because what if they tase me? What if they shoot me? What if I'm fat? I'm overweight. I could die at any moment. I'm a ticket.
All right, so I won't subject you to any more of that because he just kind of goes on and on in that vein. He goes on for about 5 more minutes, but not really saying anything, of substance. And it's not just him. This is what people do. Matt Walsh wrote a piece for the Daily Wire saying, talking solely about why Daunte Wright's criminal past is relevant. They don't want you to see these people as human. They don't want you to take the state to task. They are statists. They are authoritarians. And I wanted to show you that video just to show you how this stuff works. And this happens all the time. That's why my prediction was right. I based it on what I've seen them do in the past. I've seen the methodology. And this is done on purpose, by the way. This isn't organic. Like, they know what they're doing. At least most of these people do. When they see a police shooting, they know that their audience loves the police. They know that they back the blue no matter who. So they have to throw them that red meat. So they know exactly how to do it. Police officer shoots a black man and it's clearly unjust. They have to find a way to defend the officer. And in this case, it wasn't very easy, which is why they focused mostly on distraction and dehumanization, because they couldn't defend a whole hell of a lot because there wasn't really anything there to defend. In those cases, they'll even admit that the officer was wrong, but they'll say the officer was wrong, shouldn't have done it. But he shouldn't have resisted arrest. But he had a criminal past. So it doesn't really matter. So yeah, it was wrong, but he was a piece of crap anyway, so you shouldn't care about it. That's what the message is here. So don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. And I'm sure there will be other times that this comes up, and I'll do a video on the other tactics, the defend tactic. I actually wrote an article today about all three and how all three are present in this case. So I'll put that in the show notes, but you can see it on redstate.com if you go to my author page. The title is "Blindly Defending Police Officers is Not Conservative, It's Authoritarian." That's the title of the piece. So let's check the chats here really quick. Let's see. Invisible Black Elephants. What's good, brother? This is why I say we have to go back to basics and talk about what is conservatism, because these new jacks don't get it. You know what's unfortunate, though? This stuff has been going on for a long time. It's not just Tatum. There have been Black conservatives and also Conservative Inc. who use these strategies, and they've been using it for decades. We have to get past this. We have to get the conservative movement to actually start adhering to the principles upon which conservatism is founded. And the good news is more and more are doing that. More and more are kind of realizing, hey, maybe we shouldn't be so quick to defend the state, because that goes against our principles. When they deserve it, yeah, defend them. When they don't try to figure out how to defend them, right? Brown Mama, conservatives, at least most of the pundits, should really stop using the limited government talking point. You can't say you are for limited government and constantly defend agents of the state. No, you can't. Now, you can call yourself on the right. There is a such thing as right-wing authoritarianism, and that's what they are. I can't say that they're conservatives, because I got into a disagreement with somebody on Twitter, and they're saying, no, these are conservatives. They call themselves conservatives. I don't care what they call themselves. I'm a Christian. So if I come out and I say Jesus Christ is not the Son of God and Muhammad is the prophet, but I call myself a Christian, are you going to believe me? No, because I am speaking against a foundational principle of Christianity. So I can call myself whatever I want. Nobody's going to believe that I'm a Christian, because I clearly don't believe in the tenets of Christianity. The same applies to conservatism. You can't call yourself a conservative and be believed if you go against a basic fundamental tenet of conservatism. I don't drink Henny, though. I have a gun and I smoke too. Yeah, well, according to Tatum, you deserve to be shot by a police officer. I haven't had Henny in a while. It's been years since I've had Henny. I was more of a Cavassier person myself anyway, back in the day. Let's see. Candace Owens, Christian Walker, Jesse Lee Peterson use the exact same tactics. Yep. These are not their tactics. These were passed down over the past few decades. The next Black conservative face, they'll be doing the same thing. At least Black conservative Inc. face will be doing that. Kim will walk free. She'll still receive her pension. Ben Crump going to collect the check. Yeah, Ben Crump is on this case, isn't he? Hopefully she won't get away with it, but yeah. And hopefully they don't overcharge her like they did with Derek Chauvin. You know my theory on that. What else we got? Ben Shapiro said today that manslaughter looked like the right charge for the officer. Yeah, I think so too. I don't think she did it on purpose. I don't think it was deliberate. All right, so let me go on to the next thing here. We are going to talk about a little bit about Rashida Tlaib's comments on Twitter, and then we'll get to my predictions. That'll be short. But Rashida Tlaib, she came out on Twitter and she called for the end to policing. She doesn't want any more police. And what's funny about this is I'm pulling up the story right now. So she says, quote, Daunte Wright was met with aggression and violence. I am done with those who condone government-funded murder. Quote, no more policing, incarceration, and militarization. It can't be reformed. So she wants to get rid of incarceration. She wants to get rid of policing. And nobody's trying to hear all that. So here's the thing. After she made those comments on Twitter, a lot of her colleagues kind of were like, if you remember that Homer Simpson gif where he's backing into the bushes, that's what they did. The White House, her colleagues, like people like Representative James Clyburn, Tim Kaine, they have distanced themselves from their comments. Why? Because they are skull-hammeringly stupid. But, I mean, is this any different from the usual crap that comes from the hard left? No, it's not. Not at all. You know, much of their arguments are completely nonsensical. These are people who want to make it more difficult for law-abiding citizens like yourself to purchase firearms while wanting to eliminate the police. Who's that going to affect disproportionately? You know, if I didn't know any better, I would say that they want Black people to be in danger more often, right? Because it's their communities who are going to suffer if they're not able to obtain the means by which they can defend themselves. And you're eliminating the police, there's going to be more death. And Black people know this. That's why 80% of Black people either want the same number of police in their neighborhoods or more. They don't want to get rid of the police. They want police to be held accountable when they abuse their authority, which coincidentally is what conservatives should want. But there's something deeper here. I mean, yeah, what she said was stupid. It was ridiculous. It was asinine. But that's not what I really want to focus on here. There's something deeper. If you've been paying attention to the left over the past couple years or so, you'll see that there is a civil war going on, and it's going on between the moderate faction, more of like the blue dog Democrats. That they don't exist anymore, but there's still people who are in that same vein. People like Joe Manchin, people like that, Kirsten Sinema. There's a war going on between the moderate faction and the hard leftists, which are represented by AOC, the Squad, Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, Ilhan Omar, all those folks. And the thing is that this war has been a little bit more quiet up until now. It's mainly been the progressives trying to attack the establishment. AOC's organizations aligned with AOC were putting money into challenging moderate Democrats during the primary seasons, which is what we should be doing to our establishment, which hopefully that is happening, but I digress. But it seems like lately, I would say since the election, shortly after Joe Biden took office, it seems like the moderates are finally growing a pair and they're pushing back. We saw this right after Biden was elected. The moderate factions, they were on a call and they were slamming AOC. They were slamming the Squad for promoting that stupid defund the police trope. They blamed that for the fact that they lost seats in the House and for the fact that the GOP gained ground in the lower chamber. So is it possible that this conflict is going to get more intense? I think so. I think the moderates are fed up, and they're going to get more fed up because they keep taking barbs from the far right. Even Biden, they were going after Biden because of his comments on the Daunte Wright story, because he said that there shouldn't be rioting. They castigated him for that. They felt that he was focusing more on protecting property than talking about Black lives. Now, I didn't see all of his comments, but from what I read, I didn't really get that. But it was more of a moderate position to take. It was a little bit more milquetoast. So I'm not surprised. But who's going to win this war? I mean, this is one thing that I can't predict because it could easily go either way. But the moderates are not putting up with this crap anymore, and I'm glad to see it, because the last thing that I want is, even though I disagree with the moderates politically, I don't want to see the progressive wing take over. I mean, some of us think that might be a good thing because it'll drive people over to the right, and that's a good point. That's a great point. That could happen. But at the same time, what happens if they don't? Or what happens if we have candidates who aren't attractive and they just don't vote? Or maybe they just hold their nose and vote for the far left progressive. We have to think about these things. But while we're watching what the right is doing, because we have our own civil war over here, we still need to be paying attention to what the Democrats are doing and what's going on the left. So now, without further ado, I'm going to give you my prediction. And this prediction is related to the authoritarian right. And what I'm predicting is that now that it's the defense's turn in the Derek Chauvin trial, this thing is going to be wrapped up probably within the next week or two. They're saying that the defense's case is a lot shorter than the prosecution's case. So they won't take as long to get through all of their witnesses. So I want you guys to look for this. And it's already kind of started, but I want you to look for this. The authoritarian right is going to start priming us for the narrative that they're going to promote if Derek Chauvin is convicted. It doesn't matter what he's convicted of. The authoritarian right is going to start priming us for the narrative that they intend to promote if Chauvin goes down. So this narrative is going to consist of a few things. One, they're going to say that Chauvin didn't get a fair trial. They're going to bring up the fact that the lawsuit against the officers and against the Minneapolis Police Department was settled just before the trial started. They're going to cite that as a reason, but that's not going to be the only reason. They're going to come up with others. They're going to say he didn't get a fair trial. He didn't get a fair shot. Another thing that they're going to say is the jury chose to convict because they were afraid of riots, or they were afraid of being personally targeted, or both. because at some point their names could become publicized. So what the authoritarian right, who does not want Chauvin to be convicted, by the way, they're going to say that the jury decided to convict because of fear of riots. They will have no proof of this. They will have no evidence of this, but they're going to tell you that anyway to get you to believe it, because they know that a lot of people aren't going to really think critically about it. Not everybody, but a lot of people won't. I think, and this one may be a little bit less likely, so I could be wrong on this one. I think that they're going to talk about the makeup of the jury. I believe there are 4 Black people on the jury, and that's not the proportions of the population of Minneapolis. They're going to say that swung the opinion. I think, and here's my wild card. This one may not happen, but I'm just going to predict it anyway. They're going to say that Chauvin went down because of anti-white racism. I fully believe that this is going to happen. And I believe all 4 of these predictions are right. I hope I'm wrong, actually. I really hope I'm wrong. But I know for sure they're going to say he didn't get a fair trial. I'm going to say that they're going to say that this was racial bias. They're going to say that he never had a chance, even though he's a police officer, and most of the time they get off. And like I said, they're going to say that the jury convicted because they were afraid of riots. What they're not going to say is that Chauvin deserved what he got. They're not going to say that he was convicted of whatever they convict him of. They're not going to say it was fair. They're not going to say that, that justice was done, because it's interesting whenever these cases happen, they're like, oh no, wait for the trial. You won't know if justice was done until the trial, so you can't weigh in on it. After the trial is over, they're still going to disagree with it. Now, I'm not talking about everybody on the right. I even expect that a lot of people in Conservative Inc. won't say this, because I don't think that everybody in Conservative Inc. is a full-on authoritarian. They may have some authoritarian tendencies, but I think that the authoritarian crowd is going to criticize the trial, and they're going to hope for an appeal. And by the way, I think that Derek Chauvin might even be still facing federal charges. So I don't know what's going to come of that. If he walks in this trial, then he's still got federal charges to face. But that is my prediction. And the thing is, they're not going to wait until the trial is over to do it. They're going to do it starting in some ways, like I said, they're starting it right now, but expect it within the next 2 to 3 days to see some of these talking points start to trickle in, because they're doing this to prime you. It's just like the election, right? Both sides were priming us for the excuse that they were going to use if they lost. The Democrats were priming us to believe that if Biden lost, it would have been because of voter suppression. They were going to go with that narrative no matter what. And then on the right, I predict this even back then, even before the election, I said, if Trump loses, they're going to blame voter fraud. And I was right. And I would have been right if Biden had lost too. I know how this stuff works. I watch this stuff all the time. So, just keep a watch. And when you start seeing it come in, you can be like, dude, Jeff was right, y'all. Jeff Charles called it. Let's see what we got in the chats here. I missed this one. Master Splinter. He don't love his daughter. Tatum is a big bootlick. You said it, I didn't. But I think a lot of people are enjoying the taste of boot leather lately over the past few weeks. Let's see. Oh, thanks for the super chat, Katie Bogren. I appreciate that. You're awesome. The more these statists get exposed, the better. Yes. And that's what I'm here for. And I'm not just exposing it just because I don't like statism. You guys know, when it comes to the race issue, I want the conservative movement and the Republican Party to be a movement and a party that Black people can feel comfortable supporting. Right now, when we've got this statist stuff going on, that ain't it, Chief. That's not going to do it. This is a good question. Which GOP politicians do you like? I like Rand Paul and Thomas Massie. I hope one of them runs for president in 2024. I like both of them. I like Tim Scott. I'm kind of digging DeSantis a little bit. The jury's still out on him for me, but from what I've been seeing, I've been liking what I've been seeing. So DeSantis would be another one. Unfortunately, I don't like a lot of politicians, and even the ones I like, I'm still going to criticize when I feel like I need to. That's what they're there for. Let's see. Manchin definitely about to be a Republican. You might be right. I wouldn't be surprised if he changed his registration. What else we got here? All right. Oh, this is interesting. No, Rand Paul sold us a dream in Kentucky. We thought he was different when he first was elected. He's going to lose to Charles Booker in 22 just based on Booker's black outreach here. That is interesting. Especially interesting considering that Rand Paul actually does talk to black people. He probably doesn't do as much outreach as, say, Huckabee did when he was running for governor, but I know he goes to HBCUs and he talks. So we'll see. I'll be watching that. That's a very interesting point. Rand Paul can't win president. I love Rand. Yeah, he's not going to be president. That's not going to happen. But I think he's doing some good where he is. DeSantis for president. Yeah, here we go. Already. I'm not thinking much about the presidency right now. I'm focused more on the midterms and what's going on. But I think I'm going to leave it there. Again, I appreciate you guys coming out. And again, pay attention. Those predictions, pay attention over the next few days. As you pay attention to what's going on, you're going to see that what I was saying is right. But again, if you want to support my work, join my locals community where you get members only content. It's only $4.99 per month. A fresh perspective. A freshperspective.locals.com. If you want to do a one-time donation, there are the links right there, Venmo and CashApp, and they're also in the show notes here. And please share. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you know when I'm going live. But until next time, keep your minds free.